प्रथम वल्ली उषन् हवै वाजश्रवसः सर्ववेदसं ददौ तस्य ह नचिकेता नाम पुत्र आस।
Vajasravasa, desiring rewards, performed the Viswajit sacrifice, in which he gave away all his property. He had a son named Nachiketa. When the gifts were being distributed, faith entered into the heart of Nachiketa, who was still a boy. He said to himself, "Joyless, surely, are the worlds to which he goes, who gives away cows no longer able to drink, to eat, to give milk, or to calve." He said to his father, "Father, to whom will you give me?" He said this a second and a third time. Then his father replied, "Unto death I will give you. Among many I am the first, or among many I am the middlemost, but certainly I am never the last. What purpose of king of death will my father serve today by thus giving me away to him?" Nachiketa said, "Look back and see how it was with those who came before us, and observe how it is with those who are now with us. A mortal ripens like corn, and like corn he springs up again. Verily, like fire a Brahmin guest enters a house, the householder pacifies him by giving him water and a seat. Bring him water, O king of death." The Brahmin who dwells in a house, fasting, destroys that foolish householder's hopes and expectations. The reward of his intercourse with pious people, the merit of his kindly speech, the good results of his sacrifices and beneficial deeds, and his cattle and children as well. Yama said, "O Brahmin, salutations to you. You are a venerable guest and have dwelt in my house 3 nights without eating. Therefore, choose now 3 boons, one for each night. O Brahman, may all be well with me." Nachiketa said, "O death, may Gautama, my father, be calm, cheerful, and free from anger towards me. May he recognize me and greet me when I shall have been sent home by you. This I choose as the first of the 3 boons." Yama said, "Through my favor, your father, Aduki Aruni, will recognize you, and he again toward you as he was before. After having seen you freed from the jaws of death, he will sleep peacefully at night and bear no anger against you." Nachiketa said, "In the heavenly world there is no fear whatsoever. You, O death, are not there, and no one is afraid of old age. Leaving behind both hunger and thirst, and out of the reason of sorrow, all rejoice in heaven. You know, O death, the fire sacrifice which leads to heaven. Explain it to me, for I am full of faith. The inhabitants of heaven attain immortality. This I ask as my second boon." Yama said, I know well the fire sacrifice which leads to heaven, and I will explain it to you. Listen to me. Know this fire to be means of attaining heaven. It is the support of the universe. It is hidden in the hearts of wise. Yama then told him about the fire, which is the source of the worlds, and what bricks were to be gathered for the altar, and how many and how the sacrificial fire has to be lighted. Nachiketa too repeated all this as it had been told to him. Then Yama, being pleased with him, spoke again. High-souled Death, being well pleased, said to Nachiketa, I will now give you another boon. This fire shall be named after you. Take also from me this many-colored chain. He who has performed 3 times this Nachiketa sacrifice, having been instructed by the 3, and also has performed his 3 duties, overcomes birth and death. Having known this, fire born of Brahman, omniscient, luminous and adorable, and realized it, he attains supreme peace. He who, having known the 3, has performed 3 times the Nachiketa sacrifice, throws off, even here, the chains of death, overcomes grief, and rejoices in heaven. This, O Nachiketa, is your fire sacrifice, which leads to heaven and which you have chosen as your second boon. People will call this fire by your name. Now, O Nachiketa, choose the third boon. Nachiketa said, there is this doubt about a man when he is dead. Some say that he exists, others that he does not. This I should like to know, taught by you. This is the third of my boons. Yama said, on this subject even the gods formerly had their doubts. It is not easy to understand. The nature of Atman is subtle. Choose another boon, O Nachiketa. Do not press me. Release me from that boon. Nachiketa said, O Death, even the gods have their doubts about this subject, and you have declared it to be not easy to understand. But another teacher like you cannot be found, and surely no other boon is comparable to this. Yama said, choose sons and grandsons who shall live 100 years. Choose elephants and horses, herds of cattle and gold. Choose a vast domain on earth. Live here as many years as you desire. If you deem any other boon equal to that, choose it. Choose wealth and a long life. Be the king, O Nachiketa, of the wide earth. I'll make you the enjoyer of all desires. Whatever desires are difficult to satisfy in this world of mortals, choose them as you wish. These fair maidens, with their chariots and musical instruments, men cannot obtain them. I give them to you, and they shall wait upon you. But do not ask me about death. Nachiketa said, but O Death, these endure only till tomorrow. Furthermore, they exhaust the vigor of all the sense organs. Even the longest life is short indeed. Keep your horses, dances, and songs for yourself. Wealth can never make a human happy. Moreover, since I have beheld you, I shall certainly obtain wealth. I shall also live as long as you rule. Therefore, no boon will be accepted by me but the one that I have asked. Who among decaying mortals here below, having approached the undecaying immortals and coming to know that his higher needs may be fulfilled by them, would exult in a life overlong, after he had pondered on the pleasures arising from beauty and song? O death, tell us of that thing about which people entertain doubt in the context of the next world, and whose knowledge leads to a great result. Apart from this boon, which relates to the inscrutable thing, Nachiketa does not pray for any other. Tell me, O death, of that great hereafter about which a man has his doubts.
प्रथम अध्याय द्वितीय वल्ली अन्यच्छ्रेयोऽन्यदुतैव प्रेयस्ते उभे नानार्थे पुरुषं सिनीतः तयोः श्रेय आददानस्य साधु भवति हीयतेऽर्थाद्यौ प्रेयो वृणीते.
Yama said, the good is one thing, the pleasant another. Both of these, serving different needs, bind a man. It goes well with him who of the two takes the good, but he who chooses the pleasant misses the end. Both the good and the pleasant present themselves to a man. The calm soul examines them well and discriminates. Yes, he prefers the good to the pleasant, but the fool chooses the pleasant out of greed and avarice. O Nachiketa, after pondering well the pleasures that are or seem to be delightful, you have renounced them all. You have not taken the road abounding in wealth, where many men sink. Wide apart and leading to a different ends are these two: ignorance and what is known as knowledge. I regard you, O Nachiketa, to be one who desires knowledge, for even many pleasures could not tempt you away. Fools dwelling in darkness, but thinking themselves wise and erudite, go round and round by various tortuous paths, like the blind led by the blind. The hereafter never reveals itself to a person devoid of discrimination, heedless and perplexed by delusion of wealth. This world alone exists, he thinks, and there is no other. Again and again he comes under my sway. Many there are who do not even hear of Atman. Though hearing of him, many do not comprehend. Wonderful is the expounder, and rare the hearer. Rare indeed is the experiencer of Atman, taught by an able preceptor. Atman, when taught by an inferior person, is not easily comprehended because it is diversely regarded by disputants. But when it is taught by him who has become one with Atman, there can remain no more doubt about it. Atman is subtler than the subtlest and not to be known through argument. This knowledge cannot be attained by reasoning. Atman becomes easy of comprehension, O dearest, when taught by another. You have attained this knowledge now. You are indeed a man of true resolve. May we always have an inquirer like you. Yama said, I know that the treasure resulting from action is not eternal. For what is eternal cannot be obtained by non-eternal. Yet I have performed the Nachiketa sacrifice with the help of non-eternal things and attained this position, which is only relatively eternal. The fulfillment of desires, the foundation of universe, the rewards of sacrifices, the shore where there is no fear, that which adorable and great, the wide abode and the goal, all this you have seen, and being wise, you have with firm resolve discarded everything. The wise man, who by means of concentration on self realizes that ancient effulgent one who is hard to be seen, unmanifest, hidden, and who dwells in the buddhi and rests in the body, he indeed leaves joy and sorrow far behind. The mortal who has heard this and comprehended it well, who has separated that Atman, the very soul of Dharma, from all physical objects and has realized the subtle essence, rejoices because he has obtained that which is cause of the rejoicing. The abode of Brahman, I believe, is open for Nachiketa. Nachiketa said, that which you see as other than righteousness and unrighteousness, other than all this cause and effect, other than what has been and what is to be, tell me that. Yama said, the goal which all the Vedas declare, which all austerities aim at, and which men desire when they lead the life of continence, I will tell you briefly. It is Om. This syllable Om is indeed Brahman. This syllable is the highest. Whosoever knows this syllable obtains all that he desires. This is the best support. This is the highest support. Whosoever knows this support is adored in the world of Brahma. The knowing self is not born. It does not die. It has not sprung from anything. Nothing has sprung from it. Birthless, eternal, everlasting, and ancient. It is not killed when the body is killed. If the killer thinks he kills, and if the killed man thinks he is killed, neither of these apprehend right. The self kills not, nor is it killed. Atman, smaller than the small, greater than the great, is hidden in the hearts of all living creatures. A man who is free from desires beholds the majesty of self through tranquility of the senses and the mind and becomes free from grief. Though sitting still, it travels far. Though lying down, it goes everywhere. Who but myself can know that luminous Atman who rejoices and rejoices not? The wise man, having realized Atman as dwelling within impermanent bodies, but itself bodiless, vast and all-pervading, does not grieve. This Atman cannot be attained by the study of Vedas or by intelligence or by much hearing of sacred books. It is attained by him alone whom it chooses. To such a one Atman reveals its own form. He who has not first turned away from the wickedness, who is not tranquil and subdued, and whose mind is not at peace, cannot attain Atman. It is realized only through the knowledge of reality. Who then knows where he is? He to whom Brahmins and Kshatriyas are mere food, and death itself a condiment.
द्वितीय वल्ली समाप्त। प्रथम अध्याय तृतीय वल्ली। ऋतं पिबन्तौ सुकृतस्य लोके गुहां प्रविष्टौ परमे परार्धे छायातपौ ब्रह्मविदो वदन्ति पञ्चाग्नयो ये च त्रिणाचिकेताः।
Two there are who dwell within the body, in the intellect, the supreme akasha of the heart, enjoying the sure rewards of their own actions. The knowers of Brahman describe them as light and shade, as do those householders who have offered oblations in the five fires, and those who have thrice performed the Nachiketa sacrifice. We now know how to perform the Nachiketa sacrifice, which is the bridge for sacrifices. And we know also that supreme, imperishable Brahman, which is sought by those who wish to cross over to the shore where there is no fear. Know the Atman to be the master of the chariot, the body, chariot, the intellect, the charioteer and the mind, the reins. The senses, they say, are the horses, the objects, the roads. The wise call the Atman united with the body, the senses and the mind the enjoyer. If the buddhi being related to a mind that is always distracted loses its discrimination, then the senses become uncontrolled, like the vicious horses of a charioteer. But if the buddhi being related to a mind that is always restrained possesses discrimination, then the senses come under control, like the good horses of a charioteer. If the buddhi being related to a distracted mind loses its discrimination and therefore always remains impure, then the embodied soul never attains the goal, but enters into the round of births. But if the buddhi, being related to a mind that is restrained, possesses discrimination and therefore always remains pure, then the embodied soul attains that goal from which he is not born again. A man who has discrimination for his charioteer and holds the reins of mind firmly reaches the end of road, and that is the supreme position of Vishnu. Beyond the senses are the objects. Beyond the objects is the mind. Beyond the mind, the intellect. Beyond the intellect, the great Atman. Beyond the great Atman, the unmanifest. Beyond the unmanifest, the Purusha. Beyond the Purusha, there is nothing. This is the end, the supreme goal. That self hidden in all beings does not shine forth, but it is seen by subtle seers through their one-pointed and subtle intellects. The wise man should merge his speech in his mind and his mind in his intellect. He should merge his intellect in the cosmic mind and the cosmic mind in the tranquil self. Arise, awake, approach the great and learn. Like the sharp edge of a razor is that path. So the wise say, hard to tread and difficult to cross. Having realized Atman, which is soundless, intangible, formless, undecaying, and likewise tasteless, eternal, and odorless, having realized that which is without beginning and end, beyond the great and unchanging one, is freed from the jaws of death. The wise man who has heard and related the eternal story of Nachiketa, told by death, is adored in the world of Brahman. And he who, practicing self-control, recites the supreme secret in an assembly of Brahmins or at a after-death ceremony, obtains thereby infinite rewards. Yeah, he obtains infinite rewards.
तृतीय वल्ली समाप्त, प्रथम अध्याय समाप्त। द्वितीय अध्याय, प्रथम वल्ली। पराञ्चिखानि व्यक्तिणत्वयम्भूः तस्मात् परां पश्यति नान्तरात्मन् कश्चिद्धीरः प्रत्यगात्मानमैक्षदावृत्तचक्षुरमृतत्वमिच्छन्।
Yama said, the self-existent Supreme Lord inflicted an injury upon the sense organs in creating them with outgoing tendencies. Therefore, a man perceives only outer objects with them and not the inner self. But a calm person, willing for immortality, beholds the inner self with his eyes closed. Children pursue outer pleasures and fall into the net of widespread death. But calm souls, having known what is unshakable immortality, do not covet any uncertain thing in this world. It is through Atman that one knows form, taste, smell, sounds, touches, and carnal pleasures. Is there anything that remains unknown to Atman? This verily is that. It is through Atman that one perceives all objects in sleep or in the waking state. Having realized the vast, all-pervading Atman, the calm soul does not grieve. He who knows the individual soul, the experience of the fruits of action as Atman, always near and the Lord of the past and the future, will not conceal himself from the others. This verily is that. He verily knows Brahman who knows the firstborn, the offspring of austerity, created prior to the waters and a dwelling with the elements in the cave of heart. This is verily that Brahman which thou hast asked for. He verily knows Brahman who knows Aditi, the soul of all deities, who was born in the form of prana, who was created with the elements, and who, entering into their heart, abides therein. This verily is that. Agni, hidden in 2 fire sticks and well guarded like a child in the womb by its mother, is worshipped day and day by men who are awake, and by those who offer oblations in the sacrifices. This verily is that. When the sun rises and whither it goes to set, in whom all the devas are contained, and whom none can ever pass beyond, this verily is that. What is here, the same is there, and what is there, the same is here. He goes from death to death, who sees any difference here. By the mind alone is Brahman to be realized. Then one does not see in it any multiplicity whatsoever. He goes from death to death, who sees multiplicity in it. This verily is that. The Purusha of the size of a thumb dwells in the body. He is the Lord of the past and the future. After knowing him, one does not conceal oneself any more. This verily is that. The Purusha of the size of a thumb is like a flame without smoke. The Lord of the past and the future. He is the same today and tomorrow. This verily is that. As rainwater falling on a mountain peak runs down the rocks in all directions, even so he who sees the attributes as different from Brahman verily runs after them in all directions. As pure water poured into pure water becomes one with it, so also, O Gautama, does the self of the sage who knows.
द्वितीय अध्याय प्रथम वल्ली समाप्त। द्वितीय अध्याय द्वितीय वल्ली। पुरमेकादशद्वारमजस्या वक्रचेतसः अनुष्ठाय न शोचति विमुक्तश्च विमुच्यते एतद्वै तत्।
There is a city with 11 gates belonging to the unborn Atman of undistorted consciousness. He who meditates on him grieves no more. Liberated from the bonds of ignorance, he becomes free. This verily is that. He is the sun dwelling in the bright heavens. He is the air in the interspace. He is the fire dwelling on earth. He is the guest dwelling in the house. He dwells in men, in the gods, in truth, in the sky. He is born in the water, on earth, in the sacrifice, on the mountains. He is the true and the great. He it is who sends prana upward and who leads apana downward. All the devas worship that adorable one seated in the middle. When the soul, identified with the body and dwelling in it, is torn away from the body, is freed from it, what then remains? This verily is that. No mortal ever lives by prana, which goes up, nor by apana, which goes down. Men live by something different, on which these two depend. Well then, Gautama, I shall tell you about this profound and eternal Brahman, and also about what happens to the Atman after meeting death. Some jivas enter the womb to be embodied as organic beings, and some go into non-organic matter, according to their work and according to their knowledge. He, the Purusha, who remains awake while the sense organs are asleep, shaping one lovely form after another, that indeed is the pure. That is Brahman, and that alone is called immortal. All words are contained in him, and none can pass beyond. This verily is that. As the same non-dual fire, after it has entered the world, becomes different according to whatever it burns, so also the same non-dual Atman, dwelling in all beings, becomes different according to whatever it enters, and it exists also without. As the same non-dual air, after it has entered the world, becomes different according to whatever it enters, so also the same non-dual Atman, dwelling in all beings, becomes different according to whatever it enters, and it exists also without. As the sun, which helps all eyes to see, is not affected by the blemishes of the eyes or of the external things revealed by it, so also the Atman, dwelling in all beings, is never contaminated by the misery of the world being outside it. There is one supreme ruler, the inmost self of all beings, who makes his one